What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp here for the Fightful.com Shane Helms podcast. I think this airs December 20th. Shane, you had a busy week last week.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. We did, if the calculations are correct, we did 81 segments of Impact, 9 hours of pay-per-view, somewhere between 8 to 12 matches for Explosion, and that was in a 9-day period.
That's brutal, man. That's brutal.
It's brutal, but it's awesome, man. It's a very strange and unique way to film television, something that no other company does. But there are reasons for them doing it that way, shooting out a sequence. That's to allow some of the talents a little bit of time off when they can, and to take advantage of some of the talents that are there only for a couple of days that might not can be there for the whole 9-day loop. So there are reasons why they do it, but it's tough. But anything easy, those stories you never talk about. When things are perfect and they go right, you never remember that shit. But when things are tough and they still turn out good, that's what you remember.
I think that's maybe a topic we should put up on the poll, unless some dork on Twitter gives us heat over it.
Who's going to give us heat?
Some dork you went off on. That was funny.
What did I go off on him about?
He said that apparently that we didn't invent polls. Because Pritchard does it.
Did we say that we did?
Pritchard has a really good show, and he does polls, and apparently they're the first people to do polls ever.
I think all podcasts have done a poll at some point. All radio shows.
It's an easy way to get people to watch the show to make sure you talk about what they want to talk about. I think that's definitely one that we should put on there. The one that got voted in this week, Backstage fight. So we get to hear about Chris Jericho hitting you with a code breaker at the club. We get to hear about Buff Bagwell beating your ass.
Wait, you're going to have to tell me about this.
About the time
that shit didn't happen. So
by the time Dixie Carter pimp slapped you backstage. And there are a few of these you were front row for, Shane.
Yeah, things happen, it's a very macho sport, tempers flare out there, it's a physical thing, Is it any more than happens in any other sport? I doubt it very seriously, but
boys will be boys.
Boys will be boys, and girls will be girls,
Some of these descriptions are courtesy of Armpit-Wrestling, and to be quite honest, guys, some of these are utter horse shit. And
well, let me be upfront now. If it's about any of my friends, I'm not going to say anything to make my friends look bad.
Sure.
So that's not what this podcast is about. It's not what I signed up for. So I try to keep things positive. So if it starts to spin into a negative, we'll just have to change this topic. Damn a poll.
Hey. Speaking of Positively Page, DDP has talked about this one before. He's talked about this one before. He's told me about it personally. Him and Scott Steiner. Kimberly was backstage. She found a gimmick, as you would say in the business. Blamed it on Tammy Sitch. Tammy Sitch took a piss test right there on the spot and passed it. And apparently, while all this is going down, Scott Steiner chases Kimberly out of the damn building. Some stuff happens. Scott Steiner cuts a promo on DDP. DDP wasn't happy about it. He had to stand up for his woman. And some stuff went down.
I don't remember anything about him chasing Kimberly out of the building. That's, not saying it didn't happen, but I don't remember even hearing anything about that. But Scott would go out on the microphone and just go off. But that's Scott. I think, it was a very Wild West booking back in WCW days, and not a lot of control from any authority figure at all. And Scott would be one of those guys that's going to just be hard to control anyway. And I'm not sure where all the heat came from or what started anything, but he did go out there and say, some inflammatory remarks, whatever. And DDP was in the locker room, and he just stood up and walked out, and headed down to, what we call the gorilla position.
DDP had told me that he managed to get Scott Steiner in a front face lock, but then he let go and said that he felt like a dumbass when he let go because he was like, that was my only chance.
Yeah, I think it was pretty short. Everybody, kind of got him apart. And then, like I had been riding, I think, with DDP that loop. But for some reason that night, I was going to have to switch and ride with somebody else. And I remember I buzzed Paige and just to see if he was okay. And he answered the phone. He goes, "I survived Godzilla." But like that's a bold move. Like if you're gonna go fight Scott Steiner now, you got to go into that fight knowing there's a good chance you're gonna get your ass whooped. But like DDP, you know, his wife at the time had, you know, Scott had, I guess, and so did his wife, and he felt like he had to do something no matter what. So that's a special kind of bravery. Now it's easy to go fight a fight you know you're gonna win, but when you go to fight somebody that there's a damn good chance you're gonna lose, now that you know, so I had to take my hat off to him for there. And you know, I guess he did survive Godzilla. That was a good way to put it.
DDP has said that Scott Steiner landed a double leg takedown, kind of bear hugged and threw him, and that Scott put a pretty good hurting on him for a little bit. But hey, he survived. He lived to fight another day, and he's doing all right for himself these days.
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's one of those deals with both my friends. I don't know if they've ever made up. You know, I don't even really ask them about it or anything like that. But you know, I'm buddies with both of them. Of course, I'm a lot closer to DDP. But like I said, I mean, he survived Godzilla. That's the only way to sum up that whole shenanigans.
DDP, one of the great guys in the business. I love always. He's just one of those people. Like I always talk to him. I talk to you. I talk to guys like even Danny Cage. I always learn something. Like I could be talking about anything, and I manage to learn something about wrestling when I talk to those people. Also, there was a video of Scott Steiner destroying a Shoney's a few years ago. That was awesome. Did you ever see that?
Yeah. No.
Oh God, because his brother
he owns the Shoney's now.
Yeah, I think he or his brother opened one up, and they tore one down, I guess, to rebuild it. Maybe, I don't know, but it was for a commercial, and it was great. It was awesome.
I thought you meant he was really went in there and lost his mind.
No, I wish that would have been better. Next up on the I can address this one too. ICP told this story. I guess your boy, Evan Courageous, was back. He was backstage. He went up to shake Goldberg's hand. And Goldberg, I guess, was fondling around with his balls, as sometimes I guess guys do when they're just sitting around in their sweatpants. And Goldberg reached out his hand to shake it. And Evan's like, "Whoa, thanks, but no thanks, buddy." And the way that the Insane Clown Posse tells the story is that Goldberg just picked him up by the throat and kind of chucked him. Did Evan ever tell you anything about this?
Yeah, he mentioned that to me. I want to say that was the time I was in the company, but I just hadn't made it to the building yet or something, because I was there when ICP was there. And I remember, I mean, it was kind of like that. Evan said something, you know, but Evan was just being funny. Like, "Hey man, you know, can't shake my hand when you just scratched the balls." You know, I mean, nothing like that should have been offensive, but you know, Bill didn't have the longest of tempers, if you understand what I'm saying. So he, apparently that's just what I heard that too. He just grabbed him and kind of pushed him down, choked him by the neck or something like that. Not that anybody threw punches or anything, but you know, I mean, Bill's a great big guy. Doing that to somebody that's 175 pounds, 180 pounds, you know, so. But then again, if he thought that Evan was disrespecting him, you know, sometimes you take what you get when it comes to being disrespectful. But I don't think Evan was meaning to be disrespectful. I think it was just you know, something got lost in translation. And as I said earlier, Bill wasn't known for his diplomacy.
I want to know your feelings on the handshake deal, because the handshake deal is a recurring theme in these backstage fights. Like, it seems like that fuels a lot of stuff. What is your policy with the handshake backstage whenever you're arriving, leaving, whatever it may be?
It was never a problem for me, you know, because you know, I go up and say hey to everybody anyway. You know, I was never one of these guys that I'm not going to go say hey to people, and I've already introduced myself, so, you know, I'm going to go sit over here in the fucking corner or something like that. So, you know, and I wanted to meet the top guys and I wanted to talk to them. So for me, that was never an issue, you know. And once it was explained to me, even the first time, that there's a kind of a respect thing involved, I was like, okay, cool. You know, it's not that big of a damn effort to go shake somebody's hand. So, I mean, so the guys that have a problem with it, it's always some kind of weird, passive aggressive ego thing on their part. Like, I'm too good to shake hands, or, I mean, maybe they are insecure, but you got to suck that shit up. I mean, if you're going to fit into a locker room and you're going to be working with a lot of guys who, at some point, your life could be in their hands. And even if it's production people, man, I talk to everybody. I talk to the camera crews, the sound guys. I want to know who everybody is. So, do I think you got to do it every single day? No, but the beginning of the loop, just go up, say hey to everybody. At the end of the loop, you go say bye to everybody.
Say a Josh Barnett shows up and he's not shaking hands. What happens there? Does he get heat? This is just a name I'm throwing out. I have no reason to believe that he didn't. It's just a name I threw out. Or sometimes do people come in and do you see them seeking out people to make sure that they've shaken hands so they don't get heat?
I mean, I definitely seen that people seeking out people to shake hands, but I think I've always been a little open-minded when it comes to new people in the business that might not know these rules. So I don't hold steadfast to that. Like if somebody brand new to the business is coming in, if they don't walk around and do it and shake everybody's hand, it's not nothing that they're going to get heat with me about, but I am going to wonder why they, not trying to meet the people they're going to be working with. Do they have any real interest in being there? I mean, that kind of says something about the person, but you won't get heat from me for it. But, if you got somebody and do week after week after week, they just kind of hang and stay to themselves, people like that don't really fit in a locker room environment. And you're going to want to fix that problem so that maybe you can help them out. And I've definitely went to people and I told them, hey man, you might want to say hey to some people around here, and get to know people. But especially when you're on the road and you're traveling with people, you don't want to be around people you don't like. Nobody does. So it's just sort of that, and I mean, I find it odd that somebody would want to be in a locker room and not know anybody. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if I got my gear laying around, you get naked in front of these people, I would at least want to know who that is, I mean, I don't necessarily go try to shake hands when the package is hanging out, but you want at least some comfort, and some familiarity with the people that you're hanging around with.
Next up I'm doing these chronologically. You might know something about this. There's a guy named Buff Bagwell, Shane. Mm-hmm. And the people that I've talked to said that this had bigger ramifications on the locker room than most people realize. They say that it maybe bridged a gap between WCW and WWF guys. And this comes straight from wrestlers that were in the locker room at the time. Apparently, this endeared you to some of the WWF guys and endeared some of the other WCW guys to some of the WWF guys. Tell me what happened. Why are you freezing water bottles, Shane?
Well, you got two versions of that story. You got Buff's version, who nobody will back up. And then you got mine, which will be backed up by 20 other people that were there and saw it happen.
I can confirm that. Yes, that is pretty much what happened.
And I've made, we've kind of made peace since then. And he'll still go out and tell his weird version of it. But I think that's kind of one of those things where he's told it to himself so much he believes it. Like he really don't think he's lying. He just believes that's what happened. But what had happened was that we were at the Trax Training Center, WWE. And they brought the WCW guys up to get used to the ring because the ring's bigger. They used real ropes as opposed to cable. And so we just, come up and for about a week and we're all going to get adjusted to it. So all up there training, stuff like that. And this particular day, I'd actually hurt my shoulder working out with Mike Awesome. Just going over some spots with Mike Awesome. And so we had this break and I was sitting in the ring on my ass with my back to the ropes, not in a corner, but kind of in the middle of the ropes, with my back to the corner. And everybody's just sitting there jibber jabbering. And I had not frozen at all because what the fuck do you just magically find a frozen water bottle? But there was these little 10-ounce bottles of water that were in a refrigerator in a little snack room. And so I went and got it. It was the coldest thing I could find. Again, just a water bottle, not this frozen shit, which everybody says, which I guess you walk around with frozen water bottles. Who the fuck knows? So anyway, I'm sitting down and I'm just kind of like having it on my shoulder because I got this concern that this little shoulder injury is going to be a problem. And it did present a problem for a while. But like I said, I'm concerned, I hadn't even made WWE TV yet, WWF at the time. And so anyway, as it happens with the boys, everybody starts talking shit about everybody. Now I ain't saying nothing. I'm just sitting there, and for whatever reason, Buff decides that I'm the one to talk shit to. Now, anybody that knows me knows I got the gift of gab, and I can talk shit like nobody's business. And so he was just trying to, you know, insult me, but I was firing back, and I was just winning hands down, and he was getting embarrassed. And finally, you know, he just got upset and came, and he's standing on the floor behind me.
Yeah.
You know, he's kind of off to the side. And so he came and smacked me like from behind in the ear. Now, his version of events was that he somehow smacked me right in the face, which would have been impossible. He was on the floor, came and hit me from behind in the ear. And I just kind of looked at him and I chunked that bottle at him, a little plastic bottle, just kind of to distract him. And then I was coming out and we're going to light him up. Because I'm just, you know, I've always said when it comes to being bullied, like I would fight back. Like I might not win. I don't give a shit if I take an L, but if you fuck with me, I'm going to fight back. That's just how it's going to happen, especially if you lay hands on me. And two, I was young at the time. I'm old man now, old man shame. I was like, just fuck it. Now, if you hit me, I'll probably try to fight you back. But so anyway, I jump out and you could just see, I mean, he's doing the whole Ric Flair thing, like, no, that bullshit, and kind of skippering backwards. And, you know, before we really get into the meat of anything else, you know, you can see blood, you know, shooting out of his damn head.
Did that surprise you that busted him open?
Yeah. Like I say, I mean, no matter what I had in my hand, I would have threw it at him just to get out and get on even ground with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know people would ask me before, like, why would you throw something? Listen, when we're fighting, ain't no damn rule book. Much less if you outweigh me by 50 fucking pounds, you know I'm hurt, and you're going to hit me from behind, and then, bitch, because I threw something, man, fuck you.
Do you think that, like, did the cat catch him? What part of it caught him, or did you even pay attention?
Don't care.
Slip on a banana peel for all you care, right?
But I know everybody swore to secrecy. Because with the WCW guys, we knew this was going to make us look bad. Now, immediately, I'm one of those people, too, that I get in a fight, immediately I regret it. You know, I think that if you're a mature person, you know, you immediately regret that shit. Like, even if it's warranted at times, you just kind of hate that the whole situation happened. And so immediately I was talking to him about things like, man, you know, fuck, I hate this, that sort of shit happened, but I was still kind of hot. And they took his ass to the hospital. And they took me to lunch and paid for it. Make of that what you will. And, but the boys swore to secrecy, and I can't say who they was. It wasn't WWE, it was just the boys. And so anyway, the WCW guys, we knew that this was going to make us look bad. We ain't even made it to TV yet. Now we're fighting amongst ourselves. So we were kind of worried about the perception. So we all swore to secrecy, and that never works because the boys always talk. They always talk. But this was the one time that it worked. Until I get a talking from Johnny Ace. So I'm at a house show like the next week. You know, I was still booked on everything, so nothing really happened to me. And I'm over there just kind of warming up, you know, shadow boxing or whatever. And Johnny Ace just comes and stands right beside me. He's like right here, looking in the same direction I am. And then he goes, so, Sugar Shane. And he turns right to me like this close. What happened to Bagwell? And I'm like, and so I know he knows. You know, it's like, man, fuck that shit, you know. Kind of told him what happened. Apparently his mom had called the office and ratted the whole situation out. And
oh no, you're cooked. You're cooked from that point.
Well, I knew the way Johnny asked me that he knew it. I wasn't going to lie about it, you know. And I just told him exactly what happened.
Bagwell's cooked. That has to look bad from a locker room standpoint. If your mom's calling.
But that was kind of the same. She was like his / agent or some shit. I don't know what was going on with that. But anyway, so I know I get the TV and somehow Sugar Shane's bags have been moved from the WCW side to the WWF side. And so I was like, yes! Because it was kind of segregated at the time, man. It was WCW on one side, WWF on the other.
You broke barriers, Shane.
Broke barriers, man. And, you know, there was he was just very disliked and, you know, his own worst enemy. I know down in Atlanta, I had to have the meeting with JR, and JR asked me what happened, and I told him, and just shooting straight with him, and I told him, you know, I said, I want to be here. There's nothing more I want in this world than to wrestle for this company, you know. And I said, but I will never let nobody hit me. Like, that shit just not going to happen. And JR was cool with that, and I'm pretty sure JR will verify that. And And that was kind of it. And I think Bagwell got fired that day. That was like a week or something later. He either got fired that day or the next week. And well, I mean, it sucks, man, because he was tailor-made for WWF. Like, he had the look, you know, he could talk, he had charisma. So he could have done really well for himself there. But, you know, just being a dick, that endeared you to the wrong person.
Do you think that endeared you to the front office? Because JR and I would imagine Johnny Ace and Vince are kind of old school guys, and they probably expect that out of their bigger guys. I mean, it seemed like they were taking a gamble. I mean, they were going with smaller guys like you wrestling the bigger guys. And do you think that maybe helped you out a little bit in their eyes, saying he's not afraid to go at it with the bigger guy?
Yeah, I mean, it probably did. You know, that old school mentality exists, but it's also just about being a man and a human being. You know, like I said, I've kind of always been like that. I was a small kid, but when the bullies would come at me, I would come back. And, you know, and eventually they just leave you the fuck alone. Not everybody can take up for themselves. You know, I understand that. But, you know, I didn't come from the Don't Be a Bully program. I came from the Don't Be a Bitch program. And if you hit me, I'm going to fucking punch you in your mouth. And then we'll see what happens. And like I said, I don't want to sound tough. Like I can't take an L because I have. But you're going to have to earn it. I'm not going to give it to you for free. And so it was what it was. But, you know, I think the boys end up, you know, they laugh about that shit. I don't think that it helped me get a push or anything like that. But, you know, I mean, it let guys know, like, hey, you know, you might not want to fuck with that one.
Speaking of the don't be a bitch mentality, Chris Jericho seems to subscribe to that same theory.
Yeah.
You were front row for Goldberg v. Jericho. What went down there?
There was a skirmish. There was a skirmish going on. Yeah. Jericho's Canadian. I mean, that's why we got along so much, you know. We were and probably why we had our little one-on-one at one time. And but you know, he just had a problem with Bill, went to address it, you know, push come to shove. You know, there was a takedown, a front face lock, you know, all this kind of shit. And
he said he learned it from a magazine Funaki had brought that day.
He learned what, the face lock?
Yeah, the face lock choke.
Yeah, could have been. Maybe that's what inspired him to go after it. But you know, I mean, too, most of these, you know, most of the backstage skirmishes I got, the action was very underwhelming. You know, it's so you can say so and so might have won it, but you know, it wasn't like a good MMA fight. It wasn't like that ass whooping that BJ Penn took this past weekend.
Yes, Jericho says that he got him in a front face lock and people broke it up, and that he knew that he needed to like stop there. And he says Goldberg will never get a rematch, and if he tries, I'm going to run away. I will always be 1-0 against Goldberg. Now, here's what apparently Jericho had said. I don't care if you beat me up every night. I'll still fight you because things aren't going to go this way. If you're smart, you'll like me. Because if we ever have a match, I can make you look like $1 million, or I can make you look like shit, and you'll never know the difference.
Yeah. I mean, and
you want to talk about a real cerebral assassin right there.
Yeah.
That's some Dominic Cruz level trash talk.
Yeah, and it's absolutely correct. You know, like I said, Bill had a short fuse, and you know, I think he had a lot of different people in his ear at WCW, and that was a tough spot for him to be in. He was mature as a human being, as a man, but not very mature in the business and understanding all the different political games that people play. So he, you know, I think that was part of it too. But you know, Bill overall, you know, I know we mentioned him being in 2 skirmishes, but I think Bill overall is still a good guy. Chris is one of my best friends. So
hey, good people get into fights all the time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Now, here's what I really want to know. And you were there. There were rumors that Jericho said, "Stop it. You're being a goof." And Goldberg replied with, "Your mother's a goof."
Yes.
And Booker T says, "Did you just say his mother was a goof?" That's the worst insult I've heard in my life.
Yeah, it was something very, very much along those lines. So yeah, we all kind of cracked about that.
So did that lighten the mood, or did that make things worse?
It lightened the mood for us, yeah. for those in attendance, the millions not watching at home.
Hey, you know, maybe scripting promos isn't that bad.
Scripting promos helps a lot of people.
Yeah,
you know, there's some people that don't need it, but some people that do.
Also, apparently, I think this may have been on Jericho's podcast, Vince may have not been there and sent a text and said, "What happened at Raw?" And when Jericho replied and told him, Vince wrote back, "I can't believe you beat up Goldberg. You really need to text me stuff like that."
Oh man, I'll tell you something with the Bagwell thing. Apparently, when somebody told Vince what happened to Bagwell, he goes, "Who's Sugar Shane?"
His name is Shane? We got to change that.
Yeah. So,
see, if you wouldn't have gotten that fight, you may have been Shane forever. He just wouldn't have noticed.
No, Shane wasn't going to happen. I can promise you that.
What did you hear about Flair smacking the piss out of Bischoff in a locked room in 2003?
I heard that I want to say that Arn was there and like they just kind of locked the door and kind of were going to hash it out one way or the other. But I don't remember hearing any other details on what was going on. So I'm gonna tell you, Arn's got that old school mentality, man. I'd rather have Arn on my side than on the other side.
Well, I mean, the man got stabbed like a dozen times with scissors and was. He's came back and wrestled, and not a man. That guy, that's double tough.
Arn had a full beard when he was born. Like he has been full grown ever since he was in like kindergarten, you know. So I think he's one of those old souls, and he don't take no bullshit. So yeah, I don't know a lot of details about that one. I heard there was some kind of skirmish back and forth, but I couldn't tell you exactly what happened.
Arn Anderson.
I remember thinking that if Arn had locked the door, I was like, man, damn. I wonder if they both would have whooped his ass. But
when I was like 5 to 10, Arn Anderson made me respect my elders because he looked like every dude I would see at the supermarket, and I was just like, you never know who's going to hit you with a spine buster if you back talk him, because Arn's got the bald spot and the weird glasses and the big beard, and he's not in the greatest shape. You just don't know.
And he's always looked like that. Like even you go back to his younger days when he first became, you know, Arn Anderson, man, he looked full grown and his ass was like 25.
Yeah.
he was, you know, I think he started, you know, losing that hair at about 19 or something. And he had, like I said, he had that full beard at birth. So
what did you hear about the Lesnar Angle backstage wrestling match? That's one of those where if I were there, I'd be like, damn, wish I was on SmackDown right now.
Wasn't there for that. Never really heard a lot about it other than, you know, I mean, despite the size difference that, you know, Angle's a bad dude, man, you know, to be able to keep Lesnar at bay, you got to be pretty damn good. But I don't think that was heated or anything. Not like seriously heated. Competitive, friendly. I'm sure, but yeah, not heated.
Yeah, maybe I should say competitive, not friendly, because I would imagine Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar, I'm sure they were friendly before. Then once it goes at it. Did you ever see Vince trying to take people down backstage? I always hear that a lot.
Not too much. I've seen horseplay. I know I walked into the hotel bar one time, and this is before everything got all corporate and shit. You know, Vince would hang down at the bar sometimes. And I walked in and he chopped the shit out of me, you know, like, ow. And I just go, woo, you know, and I was just whatever. He goes, you ain't going to sell? And I was like, well, you got to lay it in, kid. And then, ha, 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 ha. You know,
goddamn cruiserweights.
Yeah, but I saw Jerry Briscoe would always go around and try to take down like Shelton and some of those guys because Jerry's real big on that amateur scene. So he would always go and try to waist lock, and I would see Shelton and those guys try to waist lock Jerry to see what he would do, you know, to see how he would react. But nothing like ever mean or anything. I mean, I've heard stories about events on the plane that would tackle people and just mess with them, but never like malicious. I mean, I guess, you know, it might be in that bully vein of playfulness, but not malicious, you know.
Did you ever hear the story that Chris Jericho told about Kofi Kingston challenging Vince McMahon to a fight?
No.
Oh my gosh. I guess Vince had like disrespected Kofi on the plane, and Jericho had said something like, you have to fight him. You have to at least attempt to fight him. And Kofi was like, what? But apparently Kofi did it, and Vince McMahon thought a lot more of him after that, because Vince said something like, maybe one day you'll get over, and Kofi took offense to it. And Jericho said that if you don't fight him, he's going to think less of you.
Hmm.
Would you have ever threatened to fight or tried to fight Vince McMahon?
I probably wouldn't have wanted to, but you know, like I said earlier, if I feel threatened or if I think shit's got to go down, then yeah, you know. I mean, I'm out too. Like I'm one of those guys. Like, if I think it's going down, I'll be like, let's go ahead and get it over with. You know, let's go ahead and clear the air, and see what's what. So,
plus, I mean, at the urging of a veteran like Chris Jericho, I'm sure Kofi felt almost obliged to do it. Oh, one more thing on the Goldberg thing. Did that affect his perception backstage? Because that was like his first week or two in the company.
No, I mean, like I said, because it wasn't one of those things where they squared up and they teed off on each other for a couple minutes and somebody got knocked unconscious. It wasn't nothing like that, you know. Yeah. I mean, I think any perception. I mean, the boys might have been talking shit amongst each others, but I don't think that made anybody else want to line up and take on Goldberg or anything.
Now, these really pick up during the brand split. Do you think the brand split maybe caused a little more of that? Maybe Vince wasn't around as much. Maybe, like, do you think that it was just a coincidence, or maybe Vince being spread a little bit more thin allowed the guys to go at each other a little more?
Just a little bit more free back in those days. You know, we weren't under the microscope that seems to be getting larger and larger as the days go by back then. So,
do you remember the reaction to what happened with Kurt Angle and Daniel Puder in the Tough Enough situation? Kurt he was in bad shape. He was in rough physical shape, and he got in there with a guy who knew what he was doing. And fortunately, a ref saw Puder's shoulders down, and they got out of the situation. But what was your thought when that went down, and the decision to actually air it?
I think it was one of those deals where, you know, Puder got a little fortuitous in that situation. I don't think anybody looked at it as anything more than that. You know, it'd be as absurd too. One guy's an Olympic gold medalist. You know, let's not bullshit about who was the better wrestler that day. So, and two, though, you know, I mean, if you're looking to wrestle and then somebody tries to hook you, and there's a difference between you know, that's what the old school hookers would do. They would try to throw any submission shit on people that were just trying to be wrestlers and perceived as tough guys. But half the time, the guy that was getting hooked didn't even, you know what was going on. And they were kind of like, you know, okay, I'll wrestle with you. And then the next thing you know, the guy's choking the shit out of him. So, yeah, I don't think nobody ever looked down on Kurt because of that or thought anything more of it other than, you know, Puder might have been taking advantage of a situation, and you can't blame him for that. Trying to make a name for himself, but it wasn't going to hurt Kurt.
There was an incident at One Night Stand 05, I think it was. JBL cracked a meanie during that confrontation. Now, I wouldn't call that necessarily a backstage fight, but there was a guy, Tracy Smothers, who was trying to fight JBL over it in the coming weeks. Is Tracy Smothers one of those guys that's considered unfuckwithable? Who are some of those guys that people looked at backstage like don't want to test them?
The number one guy has always been Mean Haku. He's always been the guy not to fuck with. You know, but as far as Tracy Smothers go, I mean, I'm not one of those people that fucks with people anyway. So, you know, not really like trying to fight people. So, I never really gave a lot of thought to that, but you'd hear about certain people that if push came to shove, you know, they would be the ones to light asses up. You know, Rick Steiner was one of those. You know, Haku, like I said, was one of the main guys. Heard a couple good stories here and there about the Barbarian. You know, heard about the Road Warriors, Hawk specifically tearing up a bar and shit one time. Stuff like that. I mean, but these are just big human beings. You know, I mean, you got to. Yeah. You know, take that shit into account. A lot of these guys have to go to bars and they got to deal with some asshole challenging the pro wrestler because of the stigma that comes with being a pro wrestler. And then the next thing you know, the pro wrestler beats their ass, and they're looked at as the bad guys. So, and two, back in the generation that came just before me, and to a degree in my early indie years, man, there was just a lot of guys that had to prove themselves in the ring. You know, because there wasn't a lot of scripts. There wasn't no overseeing committee to keep an eye on things, you know, and things were good. It was a wild west out there in the ring sometimes. So you had to be really tough to survive. So
speaking of being,
it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier these days. You don't, you don't really hear about any of that. You know, people fighting in the ring and getting into a backstage. You don't hear about that a lot these days. It's just a different environment.
Speaking of being called out, like out in public, there's a story of this, and you may have not heard about this, the story of a bodybuilder named Craig Titus. He was at a gym. He used to call out like Phil Baroni and all this stuff all the time. And apparently he was giving one of the wrestlers grief at a gym, and Orlando Jordan stepped up and dropped him.
Yeah.
Just knocked his block off. That guy would later go on with his wife to murder their assistant. So you just never know. But Orlando Jordan had no problem stepping up and dropping.
So are you saying that's Orlando Jordan's fault? That's what you're saying to me?
Maybe. Or maybe it's that dude. Maybe it's that dude's fault for having such a big dumbass mouth, and maybe that emasculated him a little bit.
I think Orlando has some kind of boxing skills too.
He
so
did.
I mean, I'm not surprised that he knocked him the fuck out. You know, he's not a small guy either.
Bob Holly, Rene Dupree. I know this was on another brand than you. Rene Dupree was not old enough to rent a car, which, you know, you're 19, you're in the WWE. That's got to be something to begin with, which he grew up in the business. He got a ticket in Bob Holly's car, and Bob he got it mailed to him because it was in his name. And, you know, you're on the road a lot. Tickets are hard to pay. Hey, they're hard to pay for me, and I'm at home every day. So I can't imagine Bob Holly doing this. Apparently, it was a big pain in the ass for Bob. He had to go to court, had to do a lot of stuff that wasn't quite – he didn't want to do. And he made Rene Dupree pay at a house show. What do you got on this one?
I think there was something too, like Rene just didn't tell him.
Yeah.
And if Rene had told him, he might have could have jumped on the problem. And something too about maybe it could have been a threat to Bob's license, and because Bob is still racing cars or in that industry, and just because you don't want to lose your license. I mean, if you travel on the road, it's kind of crucial to have a damn driver's license. So something like that. And I know Bob got him in the ring, and Bob was about half-ass stiff anyway, even if he liked you. So he got him in the ring, and I beat his ass and beat him all the way back to the locker room, like all the way through the curtain. And I heard that he was just got him on the ground, was just like putting the boots to him, like he's in the match, you know, but they're in the damn backstage, curtained off area. So, you know, I don't know how if he was just mad and, you know, was just taking it out on him and let it get too far, but he was definitely pissed off about something and felt he had to express it.
Bob Holly had a reputation as a bully, and it's really divided, to be honest with you. Like, there are a lot of people that think he is, a lot of people that are like, no, just don't fuck with Bob and be respectful. My experiences with Bob have always been pretty nice, and, you know, what did you think of him?
I think it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that on that one, you know. I think he could be a bully if he wanted to be, and I think he would be if he felt disrespected. And sometimes that disrespect might be open to interpretation, like maybe somebody didn't mean to do it. Like, I'm not saying Rene Dupree meant to not tell him about the ticket, or maybe he just forgot. Who knows what that real story was. I'd have never talked to Rene about it. But, I mean, Bob definitely has the tools to be a bully, and he's got a dark sense of humor too, you know. But I got that same sense of humor, and I always got along with Bob. So I never had any of it directed toward me, which I'm thankful for. But I don't go around being disrespectful to, you know, guys that came before me either. So,
also, the Falcon Arrow is one of the most underrated finishes of all time, in my opinion. I love that move. There was a situation with Booker T and Batista. Oh, man. You were on Raw at the time, but did you hear about this? Was that a commercial shoot?
Yeah, it was a commercial shoot for SummerSlam, and I was out there, and Matt Hardy was at the shoot, and I took the car to go work out or something because we were traveling together. I wasn't on the shoot, but I was there, and I went back to pick him up. And Matt was like, "Hey, can you come in here and help me with my bags?" And I remember looking at my phone, going, "This motherfucker need help with his bags for?" You know, I mean, I was like, "Man, bring your ass on." He's like, "No, man, seriously, I need help." I was like, "Man, what the fuck?" And so I go in there, and there's fucking blood everywhere.
Oh,
what
man.
the fuck happened here? Like, I mean, not a super amount of blood, but it was like, there was blood where there shouldn't be blood. So, you know, I was like, what the fuck happened? And then that too, I think it was real quick. It wasn't one of those ones that went a lot of places, but Booker T had his jewelry on. So you know, that was to his advantage. And Booker's bad, man. He's just two big dudes. I mean, it probably could have went either way depending on something, but apparently in this particular incident, it seemed like Booker got the nod.
Yeah, that's the word on the streets. Apparently, Ray had tried to talk Batista out of it too, and Batista wanted more. To his credit, is the consensus that I've gotten. Batista apparently grabbed Booker by the hair, threw some knees. Booker blocked him. There were also reports that Melina and Charmel had some issues, and that even Melina was sent to wrestlers' court at one point. Were you ever taken to wrestlers' court before we?
No, hell no.
Never. Did you hear about Melina being sent there?
Yeah, I want to think I was there. She might have went a couple of times. I was there for one, and it was like it was just too. Like I like the wrestlers' court when they're kind of in jest, you know, and like there might be a reason for it, but it's not real serious. But there was some kind of real serious shit with that one, and like I think she was in there crying and shit. And I was just like, man, I don't want to be in here for this. So I don't even remember what happened to it. I think that it was like after a night. It was something too. I remember half falling asleep during the damn thing because I just had zero interest in being there, and I kind of missed some of what it was about. But I'm not a fan of those wrestlers' court when it's like this real serious issue because sometimes it shouldn't be a serious issue, but guys take it too far. But then there are sometimes like we had a real good one in TNA about Grado, but it was because I saved his life from a certain situation. But we're sworn to secrecy on the details.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the funniest wrestlers' court of all time, and you know you can do stuff like that and have a good time with it. But and sometimes there are guys that need to be talking to, you know, because certain guys will try to help them out and they're not listening, and girls too, and it's creating a hostile environment in the locker room. So they have wrestlers' court, and it can be beneficial, but at the same time, it's very easy for them to go too far.
You want to talk about a hell of an angle for a Total Divas. You get somebody to let a camera in the locker room for a wrestler's court. I'll watch Total Divas one night. I will, if that's on there, because that's, and you know, it's either entertaining or horrifying, the stories that do get out. And like you said, a lot of the stories don't get out.
And because I'm friends with just about everybody, I mean, there's very few people that I dislike or dislike me. You know, if it's my friend up there and they're getting, you know, like Melina was my friend. I don't want to see nobody upset going through some shit like that. So, you know, I don't enjoy that.
Speaking of crying, do you remember Tank Toland or Chad Wicks?
Yeah, the Dicks.
The Dicks.
The Dicks, yeah.
Speaking of,
what a name.
JBL had apparently hazed them, quote unquote. And Chad had accidentally locked everybody in the locker room. Everybody laughed it off, but he thought that he was in some shit and cried to his tag team partner. Like they were going to, I guess, take him to wrestler's court, but they thought that he punished himself enough, racking his brain about what was happening. Now, this is all just reports. Apparently, Chad threw like a joking work punch at Tank. Then Tank punched him in the balls, then the face. Then they got fired.
Yeah, there was I think that was kind of like along the lines of what I heard. I hadn't even thought about that one in a while. So you need to prep me on this shit, and maybe I can try to put some thought into it and see what I can remember. I remember some shit like that. And I remember the Chad Wicks guy was always smiling. And I remember thinking I would like to see him mad just to see what happens. Because he's one of those people that smiles all the time. So he's either happy or he's a serial killer. And there's no in between. So it's one of those things. But I would have liked to seen that fight, you know, just because I'm a bad person.
There were a few on SmackDown that weren't like real fights that I wanted to bring up. Apparently, Eddie and Angle had some bad matches. I would have loved for my best match to be anywhere near their bad matches, but I guess they got frustrated with each other, and it boiled over. And Eddie shot a single leg, which Kurt Angle shrugged off. Afterwards, somebody said, "Why did you do that?" And Eddie goes, "Because I'm stupid."
You know, I did hear something, and I want to say that maybe Chavo and maybe Charlie Haas were there too, and they were kind of, it might have almost could have escalated, but it didn't. But I can't remember the exact details.
There was another one where Eddie got pissy with Charlie Haas because he felt like he had hurt his elbow and he felt like Charlie didn't get the message and wasn't taking care of him. That's another guy, legitimate amateur background. Then we hear Chavo goes after Big Show eventually, calls him fat and lazy. But Big Show kept his cool. What does that say about these Guerreros not giving a single fuck on this earth?
I mean, when you're a smaller guy, you have to be that way in a business. It's strange that all the big guys have all the credit for being so tough, but anybody on the inside knows it's generally the smaller guys that have went through the most shit, that have had to survive the most fights, and have to deal with the big man mentality that's existed for so long. Probably not the case anymore. It doesn't seem to be, but I know that was definitely, so me and Chavo are from the same cloth when it comes to that, That's just how you got to be. I mean, it's definitely how you had to survive back then. I don't think you have to be like that now. So good for the new guys that they don't have to go through that shit. I don't want nobody to have to go through what I went through in the Indies. So I'm glad it's easier. A lot of the older vets, they always like to talk about how tough it was, and but I'm genuinely glad that today's guys on the Indies don't have to go through what I went through.
Do you think that's changed, like even just in the past 10 years?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
I remember I interviewed you for that Muhammad Hassan piece, and there was something interesting that I was told by two people that were in WWE now. They said, had he come along 6 or 7 years later, he would have been really big and probably would have had a long run. But a lot of things, he came along at the wrong time for who he was. So that speaks to a lot of me. Do you think it's changed for the better, for the worse? Do you think it makes people softer? Tougher? Do you think they need that? Like, how do you think it's affected the business?
I mean, I don't know. It's like there's people that talk about how they used to have to walk to school both ways up through 9 feet of snow.
15 miles in the snow.
Like, isn't life better not having to do that?
Yeah.
So
the grandpa on Rugrats, remember him?
Yeah, I got to think the environment's a little better, that you don't have to fight and claw and all that kind of crazy shit. But I mean, some of the guys might not be as tough, but life was tougher back then. Life is supposed to get easier. So, who knows? I guess that's argumentative, but I'm definitely not going to say it's better, but the environment's better. It don't make the guys any tougher, but I think the environment's better, and that's a good thing. Like I said, I'm glad that today's young guys don't have to go through the bullshit I went through.
We have just a couple more. Sheamus versus Yoshitatsu. Now, I don't know how much you would have heard about this. It happened, I guess, in developmental. Ted DiBiase Jr. was there. Now, Conan tells a version of this story where Yoshitatsu was owed money by Sheamus. Another story is that Ted DiBiase and Yoshitatsu were kind of pissy because Sheamus never cleaned their protein shakers. And Sheamus, I guess, shot one back at him, like a zinger back, and Yoshitatsu tuned him up pretty well. Now, there was an interesting twist to this story because there were tweets, Sheamus versus Conor McGregor, the Irishman, and Yoshitatsu responded to a story about that and just said, "I don't think so."
Very good. Good for Yoshi. That's exactly what I heard too. I didn't try to find out a lot about it. But that's exactly what I heard, that there was some money owed and words were exchanged. And then Yoshitatsu apparently had a good 1-2 combo. And that was pretty much it.
He threw some mean kicks in the ring. Like, he threw some nice kicks.
Yeah.
Now our main event. Well, actually, no, not our main event, because I got to save the Jericho thing. You and Jericho. The co-main event. Joey Styles and JBL. Now,
hey,
JBL,
your video's frozen up, by the way. Is mine okay?
Hell, they don't need to see me. I'm okay.
Good. Yeah, the thing about the JBL one, I heard he was just drunk as shit on a plane, messing with people as Joey would. As JBL was like to do. And JBL can be a bully, but it's like, it is bullying, but it's not mean most of the time. Sometimes it's just him being funny, but
no soaping ass in the showers or.
I don't know. I guess some of the stories are pretty fucking crazy. So, he can be a bully, no doubt. And I don't even know why I tried to defend that. Because he's my buddy. He never bullied me. It's my thing. He never bullied me, so I had to deal with it. So I guess I'm being insensitive, and he could very well be a bully. But too, like on some of these plane trips and bus rides, and you know, when you're the sober one and everybody else is just yelling and screaming and you want to sleep, those make for some long trips. And I'm generally one of the ones yelling and screaming in the back. So, but apparently that's what it was. Joey was just, you know, the sober wanting to chill, and JBL started being obnoxious to him and rude or whatever, and Joey put the hammer down, and that was it. One shot. And I remember getting a TV, and somebody, Fit Finley, was talking about it. And just what happened, I want to say it was Fit. It might have been Regal. I don't know. But it was saying, I was like, Joey? Like, you know, I just couldn't put it together. Like, Joey Styles? Like, yeah, I was like, wow. And too, you know, not to crack on JBL. I think he was a couple drinks from going down anyway. Joey just made sure that last shot wasn't the liquid version.
Hey, it's like what Ben Henderson always said. He goes, I don't care if my opponent slips on a banana peel and ends the fight. It ends the fight.
There ain't no rule book in fighting. Not in a street fight. Ain't no rule book. So
did JBL
is to not lose.
Do you think he had that coming?
Oh shit, we all got it coming, kid.
It's true. That's true.
He probably earned that one. You know, it sounded like he did. So
the former Nova, Simon Dean, Mike Bucci, had told a story. I guess Vince McMahon had texted Triple H and said, "You're not going to believe what happened." And I guess rumor has it that Triple H read the text out loud at a house show, and the people were in shock. Is there any truth to that?
Is this about the Joey Styles JBL one?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know. I can't either confirm nor deny it, but I never heard that.
What you can confirm or deny is why you and Chris Jericho were a menace to my state of Kentucky. What happened?
What happened? Alcohol.
What happened?
Alcohol.
That's why I don't drink.
That's the short and long of it. We've been out 100 times, you know, 150 times, always getting into some shit. And you know, both three shits to the wind, kid. 3 sheets to the wind. I probably was a little bit more. I was on a mission that night to drink. I don't even remember why, but some shit was going on. And we were in the cab, and I remember him poking me in the face, just kind of fucking with me. And I'm kind of touchy anyway, and I just got real touchy at that point. And then we're both going back and forth. And nothing really major, but the cab driver was the one that called the cops. He got really afraid. So he ran out and called the cops. And like, I remember the report being that I ran away, which I wasn't in no condition to run no fucking way. I staggered away, but it was because the fight was over. Like, shit, I'm going home. Like, I was, like I said, I was out of my mind drunk. And I remember walking down the damn street going, where the fuck am I at? I don't know where I'm at. And then, like I said earlier, like, I always regret the fights. And I remember thinking about it, I go, I need to go check on Chris. And that's why I went back. I went back to check on my buddy. And Chris, and like too, when the cops showed up, he was just in the store, like getting something. They came and asked him some details, and he was trying to protect me by saying it was some other guy or some bullshit. So if we didn't like each other, we probably wouldn't have got arrested at all, because he would have said whatever. I would have been gone and never came back. But it was because we were buddies that we ended up getting. The cops came, and I remember the cops saw me, and I remember him going, "Get your big ass on the ground." And this is how egotistical pro wrestlers are. I was like, big? Like, hell yeah. I've been working out, kids. But he was like,
you all needed a Randy Savage. You all needed a Randy Savage there, like he did with Jannetty and Michaels, to be like, it's just an angle. It's just an angle.
Yeah, we needed something, but they knew. But I remember too, like we were sitting, they took us downtown, and I don't remember rights ever being read or anything, nothing like that. And we're not behind bars or any shit like that.
You were 3 shits to the wind, though.
3 shits to the wind. But, you know, I mean, it's kind of sobering when the cops come. So, you know, I was clear-headed by this point. And we're sitting in there, and Jericho, he's like, man, what, you know, asking me what the fuck. I said, well, why are you touching me anyway? We're still kind of going back and forth with that. But also, we're kind of worried about what's going on. And I remember going, are we arrested? And he goes, I don't know. So we still weren't sure, because these cops were coming over taking pictures with us. So we were sitting there like, hey, you know, hurricane pose and signing shit. And then they asked us to take that special picture over there by the wall.
Oh,
we're
boy.
like, oh shit.
The one that gets you on TMZ.
Yeah, we never like got put behind bars or anything. I've actually never ever been behind bars. None of my little skirmishes ever got me into the cell. But so yeah, and I think we had to pay like a $20 fee or some shit like that, but that's all it was. What was CM Punk and Christian are the ones that came and got us.
I remember hearing that. What was the reaction from the front office? I mean, you were gone a month later. Did that have anything to do with it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was gone because well, I mean, I'd already asked for time off after my I was on the ECW show and wasn't very thrilled with that position. But yeah, that definitely played a part into it. You know, I mean, it's a corporate gig there now, and you can't be having you guys out there getting a fight with each other and cabs and shit like that. So I mean, that definitely played a part into it. But it was very mutual. You know, that was 10 years, so it wasn't a phone call I was shocked or even really upset about getting.
You all,
I mean, there are much better ways to end your career now. Let's not gloss over that. I mean, end your career there, but you know, I mean, I stayed on great terms with them, and they appreciated my honesty about the whole thing, and I wasn't going to bullshit. You know, it was just, hey, we were drunk. He's my buddy. You know, we got in a fight. What? That's it.
You've done some network stuff since then, haven't you?
Yeah. I've done several things for the network for them. You know, I've stayed in touch with quite a few people up there.
So there you go. Lots of slugfests backstage. Next week, we're talking the end of WCW. I was kind of hoping that got voted in this week because I had done all my research, all my prep. And I think I'll send you my notes. I think I'll send you my notes this time.
All right, send me some notes. I'll see if I agree with that shit.
I mean, they're just notes. You can disagree with that shit. That's part of this. You're shooting some of this shit down. Any of these fights you would like to see a rematch present day of? The
Chadwicks, Tank Bowling, that one. I think I'd like to see. Just because I never saw
tears.
That. No, like especially if they involve my friends fighting each other. I never like that shit. And I never like I said, anytime I'm in a fight, even if it's a win where I do something cool, I'm always regretful about it. You know, in this day and age, you shouldn't be a grown adult getting in damn fist fights, but.
You shouldn't be calling anybody's mothers goofs either.
Hey, man, your mom was a goof.
Hey.
But no, there's none of that shit I want to see.
So you're home now. You've been through that arduous schedule. I don't want to say travel schedule. You didn't travel a whole lot. You traveled back and forth to Orlando, but you were working all the damn time. We couldn't even do a show last week. When do you go back? March?
Yeah, I believe the first week in March is the next Orlando tapings.
You want to spill all the beans about what happened backstage, all that cool stuff? Just give us all the scoops.
Nothing really happened. You know, the only big difference, Dixie Carter wasn't there. You know, she's on the Is Out, and Jeff Jarrett and Dutch Mantel were. That was the big difference. Sitting back, you know, they offered advice on certain things, and I mean, there are two guys that have a lot of years in the business between them. So it was interesting to talk with Dutch. You know, I've always heard great stories about him, but I never really got to spend a lot of time talking to him. So we spent a couple car rides together, and he's a very unique individual. A lot of funny anecdotes and stuff like that. And I mean, I've been a friend of Jeff for quite a while, so I like some of his ideas, and I like a lot of his ideas. And we'll just see where it goes. You know, finally the company seems like there's some good structure going on, and you know, a more business minded acumen to look forward to. And I think the talent's there. I think the roster's good. You know, of course, we're always looking for people. I think that's always the case. You know, never ever be satisfied with what you got. You know, I think there's always room for people in creative. There's always room for new ideas. The agents, you know, we seem to handle everything pretty good. So, but who knows? You know, Jeff might want to bring in some of his friends. Dutch might want to bring in some of his friends. We don't know, but I know the product, what we put out on TV, you know, the in-ring stuff in the stores, that's still going good, still going strong. So I'm having a good time. So thumbs up for me.
I'm excited for some of the changes. I am. Also, Don West is back, and I couldn't be happier. I love that guy. I
found out from you. I didn't even know he was back till you sent me that text.
You know, a lot of people find out things about TNA from me. I actually had somebody that texted me about that. But Don West, did you ever watch Bound for Glory 05 when Jeff jumped off that set? He did the swanton on somebody. I'll send you a link. Don West's call of that was one of my favorite of all time. Also, back here where this chalkboard is now, next week, I will have a Jeff Jarrett laser engraved guitar mounted because Don West had him up for sale for $30.
Yes.
$30. And now they're up
you
to
earned it, kid.
Hey, now they're up to $150. I got to steal the deal. You all got to check that stuff out.
Treat yourself.
Hey, if you can find a playable guitar for $30, you better buy it, even if it has Jeff Jarrett's ugly ass head on it.
There you go.
I should have known that Jeff and Don were both on the way back to TNA because I did a story about how many of those TNA had left, and I reached out to both of them, and for the first time ever, neither one of them were willing to talk about it. So I should have known they were on their way back to the company because Jeff is never hesitant to self-promote.
Mm-hmm.
And Don West is just never hesitant to promote anything. He is the master. So very excited for that. So Dixie, she wasn't there at all.
No, not at all.
Damn. Did y'all party?
Did we party? We have one day where there were no matches. Like that was on a Monday. So Sunday night, I think the guys went out and had a good time. And that last night, and this is the first time that this has happened since I've been there. We did a wedding scene, and if it comes off at all on TV like it came off in person, it's the best wrestling wedding ever. And the people are laughing, having a good time. Then after the cameras start rolling, some of the guys went out and they're dancing in the crowd, and the locker room wouldn't leave. Like the boys, like we done all of these days and all of these matches and all of these segments. And normally that last segment, we're ready. Let's get this last segment done and get the hell out of here. But everybody just stayed around, and everybody just kind of stayed and joking, and like nobody wanted it to end, even after all that we've done that week. So that was a very telling moment for me. A lot of positive energy. Morale's good. I don't want to beat that dead horse to death, but that's the best time to beat a horse, I think, is when he's dead, now that I think about it. But
I mean, or you're going to get kicked like Terry Funk did.
One or the other. So, man, it was just a really good vibe, and I want to see that energy continue. Competition, it's always good to have other options and alternatives out there. I've said a million times, I'm a wrestling fan. I don't care what three letters come before wrestling. So if it's good, I'll watch it. That being said, the best match I've seen in a while is Okada and Omega. That shit was awesome.
Loved it.
Yeah. I don't know how anybody could say anything bad about that match. It was really good. And that's a very interesting story. You had Omega, who was in WWE developmental for a hiccup. You had Okada, who was in TNA, and they just he wasn't quite Okada then at the same aspect.
Yeah. I always used to hear people like, you can give Vince Russo a lot of shit, but they're like, he didn't use Okada right. And I'm like, who the fuck would have used Okada right at that point? Who could have known what he would become?
I'm pretty sure I still wouldn't have used him like that.
Well, not like that.
True, you didn't know what it would become. But same thing, WCW didn't use Mark Calloway right. I mean, nobody knew how good he was going to be as The Undertaker. So you can say that back and forth. That happens with a lot of companies that for whatever reason it doesn't fit in one place, and that not failure per se, but lack of what the talent wanted at other company actually pushes them and drives them to do even bigger and better things. I mean, Austin and WCW was still, tag team champ, TV champ, US champ. They did things with him. It wasn't like they didn't, but was it what he wasn't as Stone Cold? Hell no, not even close.
Yeah.
So and like I said, Undertaker's another good example. The Young Bucks, you look at what they've done because things didn't go their way in other companies. TNA being the main one. So. And they went and tried to do stuff with WWE, and it just didn't work out. But look at them now, man, one of the hottest acts in the game. So sometimes it just don't work out, and that's not necessarily the company's fault all the time. Timing is everything in this business. Timing is everything.
Well, guys, you can get your TNA Impact coverage at Fightful.com. We got live coverage and discussion every single Thursday night. Come over there, talk some trash during the show. We welcome everybody. Of course, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Lucha Underground. Cover all your UFC events. Follow at Fightful Wrestle. That's just wrestling. Follow at Fightful MMA for just MMA. Fightful Online for both of them. Follow Shane at ShaneHelms.com.
And that's universal. Cross-platform, Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, at ShaneHelms.com. I make it easy for you.
Register at Fightful.com, guys. Maybe you're watching this a few days after we release it. If you want early access, register at Fightful.com. Go back. We're going to republish the Royal Rumble podcast we did. Shane talking about his Rumble experiences. That was a lot of fun. We're going to have more Royal Rumble features than any other site on the web. Shane, anything?
Hey, before you go, publicly, give me your pick. Chael Sonnen, Tino Ortiz.
Ooh.
Let's see if you can catch up because I'm drowning you on these picks.
Here's what's tough. Chael hasn't fought in like 3 or 4 years. Tito, I thought, did pretty good against Liam McGeary for the little while they were in there. I think Chael's going to do it, though.
I think it is tough. I hope Chael's not distracted by his apprenticeship that he's doing on that show.
Oh, he filmed that months ago. He filmed that like a year ago.
But he's still doing like promotion and stuff for it, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. So I hope he's not distracted too much with that. I think Chael has all the tools. Tito's saying it's going to be his last fight. Anytime somebody says that, I kind of lose stock in what they're saying. So
yeah,
I'm going for Chael, but it's also kind of a hard pick just because I love the way he talks shit. So he's definitely murdering Tito in the talk game. Tito used to be the one too. He used to be the shit talker extraordinaire, but not even close to being as good as Chael is. And also, too, I did this pick a couple weeks ago. I had the Falcons and the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Ooh.
I'm still on task for that. So is that you got any Super Bowl predictions?
I think that's the way it's going to go. I think it'll be Patriots Falcons. I didn't pick it several weeks ago.
You have said that before this weekend?
No, absolutely not.
Bam.
So, God, I love playoff football. I just love football. There was a point where I didn't like it. I don't know what the hell I was doing with my life. But
it's probably when I was beating your ass in fantasy football left and right.
That first season, oh yeah, I didn't even like football back then. It took finally beating you at fantasy football to get me motivated. Plus, the Bengals didn't suck starting like 5 years ago. Now they do again. Either way, guys, Fightful.com, place to be. We're out.